like Osama bin Laden, have cleverly manipulated a real sense of grievance into a willingness by some to become human instruments of mass murder.
Osama bin Laden has been in the Muslim world, has been capitalizing on very sensitive issues that mobilize the whole Arab and Muslim community. The liberation of Jerusalem, American troop presence in Saudi Arabia, of course, the fate of the Iraqi people suffering under sanctions.
Experts say terrorism cells managed to operate in America's Arab allies, such as Egypt and Saudi Arabia, as well as Europe and North America. Fearful of a backlash, mainstream Muslim leaders here in Europe are trying to explain that this war on American civilians is a crime that can never be justified as a religious duty.
The position of the Muslim community in the UK, as I'm sure in different parts of the world, is very clear. We condemn utterly and unequivocally the atrocities that has been committed. We believe that the people, the perpetrators of this heinous crime are outside the pale of civilization.
So now, British and other world leaders are calling for a global alliance to combat a global network of terrorism, to arrest them cell by cell, shut down their financial support, and make it more difficult to forge travel documents. There are no quick fixes, they say, just a long, sustained, and difficult campaign. Christiana Manpour, CNN, London.
And that's it from London. Back to you now, John.
Thanks, Liz. Let's take another look at some of the latest developments now. Search crews in western Pennsylvania have located the cockpit voice recorder in the wreckage of United Flight 93. Investigators say the recorder is in fairly good shape. It's designed to capture the last 30 minutes of cockpit conversation and could reveal whether passengers tried to regain control of the hijacked jetliner, as investigators believe.
Congress has taken quick action on a number of issues arising from Tuesday's attacks. It has approved a $40 billion spending measure. Congress also voted to give President Bush broad powers in any military action against the terrorists who attack the U.S., their sponsors, and their supporters.
It has been nearly 4 days since the attacks, and around-the-clock rescue operations continue despite some rainy weather Friday. The forecast for today, fair skies. Air travel in the U.S. is gradually being restored, with many airliners operating limited flights Friday. Some flights took off from LaGuardia, one of the New York airports close to the scene of the attack on the World Trade Center. LaGuardia, along with the city's other two major airports, was shut down again Thursday, you'll recall, after the arrest of one man with false identification papers. Passengers going through airport security now face new security measures. They're finding that items they used to carry with them as they boarded their flights will no longer get past security checkpoints. And as Patty Davis reports, resumption of flights after Tuesday's events has proven anything but smooth.
Long lines at Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport on the airline's first full day of operations.
Today I got here at 6 o'clock and my flight is at 8:20. And I'm probably not going to make it.
Long lines at this United ticket office in Washington, D.C. as passengers tried to change flights and get refunds.
We have people who have been out here for hours waiting to get in.
I waited 2 hours yesterday.
Well, today we have people waiting for hours.
The airlines are urging patience. Days after the deadly hijackings, a slow return to normal. Most airports open. 2,000 flights in the air by midday, 1/2 the normal air traffic. Instrument-rated pilots in private planes and overseas carriers now allowed to return to the skies. That's where these passengers hope to be as they waited for their flights at LaGuardia Airport.
Now it seems that the FAA haven't given clearance for any planes to take off.
Eventually, New York's airports reopened, but Washington's Reagan National Airport remains closed due to its proximity to the Pentagon and other federal buildings. Logan Airport in Boston opening early Saturday. The airlines have been hit hard by the terrorist attacks, expecting $4 billion in losses this week alone.
I've talked to a number of airline executives in the last 24 hours, and I am convinced that they are seriously impaired.
Airlines welcoming a multi-billion-dollar bailout from Congress. But with the industry suffering from a slow economy, many wonder if it will be enough. Patty Davis, CNN, Washington.
It has been rainy and cold and dark at New York's Ground Zero, but rescue workers are continuing their efforts to reach and save anyone who may still be alive. Garrick Utley joins us now with an update on the effort. Garrick?
Jonathan, the work, as you say, is continuing. The sun will be coming up shortly, and of course the workers working 12-hour shifts will continue through the weekend, and unfortunately for many, many weeks to come. We want to take just a moment and talk about something that is obvious to all of us who have been following this tragedy. That is the power of pictures. Never have they been as powerful, perhaps, as they have been this week. There are pictures that you don't have to see in order to see them. Just think for a moment. Mentioned in the past an event like Pearl Harbor, December 7th, and the picture erupts of smoke rising from those American naval vessels in the harbor there in Hawaii. Mentioned the raising of an American flag over Iwo Jima. You don't have to see it. It's there in our long-term memory, and it comes to our eyes, so to speak, immediately. What kind of images will September 11th leave? We can only begin to guess. There are so many of them. The importance of images and pictures. Here's Beth Nissen.
Iconic image to help a stunned world comprehend the human cost of Tuesday's attack. Most of the images are at remove, heavy machinery clawing at rubble, closed trucks carrying bodies to the morgue. Headlines and news reports are starting to number the dead, but most of those lost are still shrouded without a name or face.
You can say hundreds of people died, and if you see one image of one man holding one dead person, it's a different kind of information because it's more personal.
For so many, this one image personalized the human loss in New York this week. They looked at this picture and knew that there were thousands of souls like this one dark-haired man, thousands who went to work Tuesday morning and were dead just hours later. Many family members of those lost in other terrorist attacks say such graphic images are vitally important psychologically. One of those lost in the bombing of Pan Am 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, was J.P. Flynn, the brother of Brian Flynn.
It does start to make it sink in when all of a sudden it becomes less this thing on TV and more about, oh my God, there's J.P. He is gone.
Many psychologists say vivid images of tragedies such as the Oklahoma City bombing can help people move past disbelief and toward grief. A grief that will slowly give way to acceptance, however painful it is, that allows them to go on with life, however altered it is. Yet researchers on traumatic stress caution that graphic images of death, especially those televised without warning, are not therapeutic for everyone.
They may be re-traumatized by an image. Information is a double-edged sword. How much information is too much information?
And as traumatic as the sight of a human corpse is, the sight of a dismembered one is immeasurably worse. One of the reasons there are so few pictures of individual victims at Ground Zero is that so few individual bodies are intact. Those working in the debris say the scene is a horror.
You bend down and you pull up a shoe, there's a foot inside. There might be an arm laying next to it. You know, I've never seen nothing like it. Never in my life. You know, only in the movies. And this is real life what I'm talking about.
The full picture of all that happened is still developing and may always be in thousands of pieces. Beth Nissen, CNN, New York.
And of course, we all know that a picture is worth 1,000 words, although the exact quote is that a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. Often, many times more than 1,000 words, and never was that more true than this tragic week in New York. Jonathan, back to you.
Garrick, thanks very much. One known victim of Tuesday's horror was lawyer and CNN commentator Barbara Olson. She was aboard the flight that targeted the Pentagon. Her husband is U.S. Solicitor General Ted Olson, and she managed to reach him twice by cell phone before the end. He says he got another bittersweet reminder of his wife later that night.
I left the home a little before 6, as I said, and Barbara left not long thereafter to catch the plane. And it was my birthday. And when I finally went to bed, it was after 1 o'clock. Now it was September 12th. There was a note that Barbara had written to me on the pillow, saying, "I love you. When you read this, I will be thinking of you, and I will be back Friday." It were a few more words than that, but I just that was extraordinarily special and very much like Barbara. And I'm grateful that she did that.
Barbara Olson was 45 years old.
We've heard the accounts of victims of Tuesday's attacks making phone calls to their loved ones, among them, as we just mentioned, Barbara Olson. Families, though, are reflecting on these treasured and tormenting final words. Thelma Gutierrez reports.
September 11th, American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower. Jill Gartenberg's husband is inside.
Called my office. I got to my office probably 2 minutes after he left his first message on my machine saying there was a fire in his building on his floor. He didn't know if he was going to make it.
18 minutes later, United Flight 175 slams into the South Tower. Lori Van Auken's husband, Kenneth, makes a final call home.
It was just horrible. It was really just horrible. I could hear the terror in his voice, and he was trying to sound like he was calm for us, but you could hear the chaos in the background and the terror in his voice.
I hope I live.
Some 30 minutes later, somewhere above the Pentagon on American Airlines Flight 77, Barbara Olson calls her husband Ted and tells him hijackers have taken over.
She told me that she had been herded to the back of the plane. She mentioned that they had used knives and box cutters to hijack the plane. I had to tell her about the 2 airplanes that had hit the World Trade Center. Why? I just felt that I had to.
On United Flight 93 over Pennsylvania, Thomas Burnett calls his wife.
And he said that somebody was already dead, that they had stabbed somebody, and that they were all going to die, and that they were going to try to do something.
Mark Bingham calls his mother in the midst of chaos.
He said, I just want to let you know that I love you all. There are 3 men on board who have taken over the aircraft, and they say they have a bomb. And at that point, we were cut off. He wasn't able to say anything else.
Moments later, the plane went down, and families forever lost their chance to talk with one another.
Some family members will take comfort in the fact that they were able to say their goodbyes, that they were able to express certain feelings that they have, such as I love you.
Annalisa Van Kirk is a medical social worker who deals with trauma.
That they were able to communicate with the people in their lives that were important to them, and that we can take comfort from.
One of the last things Melissa Hughes did on September 11th is call her husband Sean.
Sean, it's me. I just wanted to let you know I love you, and I'm stuck in this building in New York. A plane hit the building or a bomb went off. We don't know, but there's lots of smoke, and we just wanted you to know that I love you always.
Thelma Gutierrez, CNN, Los Angeles.
Really heart-wrenching stuff.
I can't imagine putting down the phone after a call like that.
Our coverage continues next hour with guests and correspondents live from around the globe.
We'll leave you now with some haunting images from a week that saw too many.
This is a terrible moment, but this country will not relent until we have saved ourselves and others from the terrible tragedy that came upon America.